I'd like to welcome you to Time in Motion, Redefining Working Life, which is, of course, also the title of the exhibition that you can see next to, in the gallery next to the bookshop, not far from here. I gather that many of you have probably seen it already. I'm very happy to say that this exhibition has been realized at the Transmediale, that it's going on also beyond Transmediale until April, running in parallel with the Harun Farocki related exhibition here at the HKW. It's come together through a collaboration between Transmediale and FACT, which I always forget, the Foundation for Art and Creative Technology in Liverpool. And Mike Stubbs, who is one of the curators of the exhibition and the director also of FACT, is going to introduce that in full for you, how this exhibition came about, I guess, and introduce the artists that are present from the show. And I don't have so much else to say. I'd like to thank you again and enjoy this discussion around time and motion. Yes, welcome.
No, because they're live streaming it, Mike.
Okay, all right, I better use this then. Okay, good morning, Morgan Muffel. Are there any Australians in the house? Okay. Any Poms? That's what the Australians call the English. So, we've got some great artists here today, and we're going to get around to the artists as soon as possible because they know what they're talking about. We've got Sam Meech going first, Ellie Harrison in the middle, Oliver Walker over there. My name's Mike Stubbs, I'm the director of FACT, and I am the co-curator of the exhibition. Where are you? Emily. Put your hand up, please. With Emily G, who's just here from FACT with me. I want to thank, I don't know if Kristoffer gone already? Good. I want to thank Kristoffer for taking the leap of faith that without a lot of resources between us, we've done I'm really, really happy with the way the exhibition turned out. I want to personally thank you. I think it looks superb. But it was done at very short notice with some great input from a whole range of people, both on the transmediale side. Anna, I'd like to thank as well, who's the program producer. And of course, the artists, and we've got some of them with us here, because we can't do anything without the artists. But also, ideas don't come out of thin air. Yeah, I don't kind of believe in this sort of auteur thing, particularly. So there's some other people that we should acknowledge. There's a fellow over there with the dreads, my friend Peter Zon. And he's important because we're going to talk about Zhe Tashing. He's one of the artists whose work, his documentation is featured in the exhibition. And Peter introduced me to Tashing at the Verkleitz Biennale in 2000 and... Thank you. Yeah, and he's become my good friend. And he lent me his he gave me some pictures to show, said we could show his film. He didn't want any money, he just wanted to help. So we thank him. Kristoffer Schulkes, who maybe Robin might know, is a very significant Australian novelist. And he's the guy that drove me around Melbourne on my first day in Australia when I moved there. And he showed me all the spots which relate to a kind of communist history of the formation of Australia, which of course is quite a narrow timeline in terms of world history. Contemporary Australia, 220 odd years old, indigenous people 60,000 years old maybe. But Christos told me to have a look at this image, thank you. So we went up to opposite Trades Hall and we saw this monument to the 8-hour day. And I thought this is an interesting thing. Yeah, so saw the monument. And got interested in it because he built in 1856, and in 2006 there was a celebration, 150 years of the 8-hour day in Australia, and of course much of this stems out of the movement by Robert Owen, and led, especially in Australia, to the formation of the trades and labour movement. And at that time, you know, I guess that was like 7 minus 4, 2003, and we were still thinking about, you know, working on laptops on the beach. Yeah, and the idea of like mobile and locative technologies were still relatively new. So there was still a bit of kind of utopianism attached to being able to work in different ways. And if you just think where we're up to now in terms of ubiquity, ultimate connectivity, all the themes that are discussed much better by the academics in all the other panels, so much has changed so quickly. And it seemed like an interesting thing to make an exhibition about. And I wanted just to say kind of something about my own past, is that the factory gates are something which exist in me. I'm from a culture of factory gates. So both of my grandfathers were workers, and I used to go on my summer holiday to Barrow-in-Furness in the northwest of England. And my grandmother, she used to hear the hooter from the factory, yeah, and she would heat my grandfather's tea up, and by the time he came home, his tea was on the table. Yeah, so we think about the regulation of time. And this, for me, was just a sort of an amazingly clear version of the separation between work, leisure, and rest. And these, of course, signified within the rubric 888. Now, my background is also very much to do with working in a kind of situational way with performance art, as well as working in an exhibition context, and from the 1990s with new media. And so there are a whole kind of collision of ideas that come through there. Now, Faroki did feature, the exhibition in Liverpool was larger. There were more artists. There was also historic and museumological material to kind of contextualize some of the historical factors. But the factory gates featured quite strongly in the exhibition. So workers leaving the factory, the Faroki film was in it. And of course, that actually paraphrases Workers Leaving the Factory Gates, one of the early films by Lumiere. And we also showed Workers Leaving the Googleplex by Andrew Norman Wilson. So you can see the sort of lineage from a document of something to film, an activity, which is pretty much what the Lumiere brothers did, through to Faroki commenting on the idea that traditional forms of production have gone, and a deconstruction in a 45-minute film, to Andrew Norman Wilson effectively deconstructing his own process of working in this utopian dream palace Google and being fired for talking about it. I'm not quite sure what we're leaving now. I don't know what the new factory gates even look like. So in a sense, I think that's maybe some of the questions we might start to answer from an artist's perspective, because artists are also workers, or are they? And maybe some of the presentations and our discussion, I'd like to kind of have an active Q&A at the end, not just the presentation. So you might be formulating some of your ideas. But all of these artists in particular, and this selection that formed the exhibition here is quite tight. De Ching is so relevant because for me, apart from being a hero, a personal hero, like one of my favourite artists of all time, he very much sort of is a pioneer of self-quantification. He's an action artist. If he's standing here and you ask him why he did the work, he would say, because I felt like it. Yeah, and that might be as far as it goes. So he just chose, something drove him internally to make that work. Yeah, and of course we can make our own academic, curatorial, psychological readings of his motivation, but the work is the work, and the exhibition is the exhibition, and art is art. What does working with our hands look like now? Yeah, do you work with your hands, anybody? Anybody make anything? Thank you. Well, over the few people. How many people have got calluses on their hands, like my grandfather? Or when I'm looking at my very clever friend who can do real coding, is that the new work? And so I'm kind of interested to understand what work's going to look like in the future. And then I think that, again, I just wanted to say something about these three specific artists, in that they are all very committed to a sense of social justice. So if you are talking about the art market, yeah, like maybe, I don't know, occasionally these people might sell something for something, and they never. She doesn't.
Apart from books.
You'd like to, yeah, yeah. But in terms of quantifying labour or quantifying artists' time and making it into a commodity and selling it through an art market, these aren't artists that are that interested in that. They're more interested, though, in the transaction itself and converting the actuality of the transaction and the process into an artwork, and that fascinates me. And again, Ching is the starting point for that. So have these artists been given a fair wage for their labour? We're going to discover that as well today, I reckon. Maybe they haven't done quite as well as Damien Hirst, but would they want to? And I think that's enough. So I'm going to hand over to Sam Meech. Sam Meech.